speaker. Does anybody on council have anything they want to add before we close the hearing? Robert?
Yeah, Dave, if you would, because it's confusing to me and I'm sure to members of the public, could you explain kind of in layman's term how this TIF works and why under this proposal the city receives in excess of $2 million over time? You could just kind of lay that out for us.
TIF is based upon what would ultimately be around a $25.5 million value property. Because it's a TIF, certain taxes are held back. The school district is made whole. So the city is receiving the greater volume of taxes during the period of it. Theory being, when the TIF is over, we've created more, we've used this as a tax incentive, similar to what we do when we give a tax incentive in the Commerce Park. We give a tax incentive to McCluskey Automotive's headquarters. He pays minimal real estate for X number of years, pays significant income tax to the city. Everyone else is held back, Hamilton County School District. But at the end of the day, they are then get their money when the CRA is over. So there's various entities, typically not school districts, that are held out of the tax distribution. There's, obviously I wasn't here, but there was a deal made for who would get what during the process. And then, but it is considered will you take a back seat knowing that if you take a back seat now, something later is better than nothing now. There's nothing producing zero. So it is a very high value. So the TIF is, by having lesser units and higher value prices, we're equal to what a TIF would have been for closer to 60 units, if not even 70 to 80 units that would have been in there. That would have happened. So the TIF, the city borrowed against the future value of these properties, got money through a bond, used that money to purchase this property, got some money back when they sold the house to the London family. That was the meat of it. They received some money during hype. They were able to put that into that account. Truman Show, you literally see every penny since 2007. And the goal was, oh no, someday something will come and we'll start to see our revenue come in. I don't believe that the forecast for the 70 homes touched this particular forecast. I actually used a specialist to help me come up with these numbers. I didn't even use myself. I bring out an outside consultant who looks at the tax incentive, reads through all the contracts, and makes sure that these numbers are accurate. And they should exceed that. Those numbers, those dollars that could go in could very well be utilized to make what we could make a particular eminent domain purchase, for example, in certain areas of the city that could help improve traffic flow. Those type of things.
Those monies go to the general fund.
Goes to the general fund, but I'm not going to be here in 2037. But you're not going to wait till 2037 to start spending the money. Especially if we say, well, you know what, the interest on that debt's not that bad, and we only have X number of years. Let's just keep making payments. Let's not take that 350. Let's not take that 350 right away and pay off the loan in full. Let's keep making our loan payments as the money's rolling in, and let's use that to legitimately address a concern, because what we've done to improve the traffic flow and down, and that basically goes back and impacts the residents up on 48 Butterworth, is the investment we made in the traffic monitors. We spent $90,000 with radar units that feel and sense traffic coming and make adjustments. I know that it is bad today, but I know for a fact it was worse before that. They know, they speak to each other, they know when to let it, when to hold along the green. We know of other ways we can make it even better. There's significant cost involved. And if this TIF is coming from that Butterworth area, obviously that would be a major consideration on how the funds could be spent.
The point is that as the property increases in value, the city receives funds from that.
It keeps receiving, and about every year you get a little bit of a raise, about a 0.5%. It'll keep going up, and as the taxes go up, will go up. I have a have us peaking at 148.23. In one particular year, that's in 2033. I have us at 112 in 2023, 60 in 2022. I'm sorry, 43 in 2022. And I will add one other item. So yes, that TIF has been waiting for somebody to do something, and it's taxing nothing.
And now, this would start returning dividends.
This house gets built, it produces a taxable value, 30% of its value. Then another one gets built, another one gets built, another one gets built. And then the city's TIF starts getting fed with money. Now, a little bit more money than this, but because Little Miami gets funded too. I truly think that it could create the revenues that really can fix some of the bigger problems. And just for one record, because she asked the question, one of the first things I said to the developer, Mr. Burling, was please, when you start the zoning, the SPD process, please come in with a traffic study at the beginning. So I would anticipate that I requested that traffic study at the very beginning. But that's how TIF works.
Okay, and that TIF doesn't include also income tax revenue for people who buy those homes, correct?
Sure. As a whole, Michelle and I's typical role is, because the city has reciprocity, anything we get in income tax is not anticipated, because if any residents up there live and work in Mason or Blue Ash because of the reciprocity. We like to think that's just anything additional. I will add in true transparency that they'll be on Western Water, they won't be on the city's water. That's in Western Water's district. So from us, we will supply their garbage service, and we will get about $30,000 in impact fees, which are for road and rec. Those need to be put back in that area. We typically take the road and rec and use it into one fund, and that area, for example, those monies could go right back into the Butter Road.
And the other developments, without disclosing things that happened in private council sessions, were much higher density, much inferior products to what we're considering here.
We went on a field trip to one of them that was offering considerably more than 350, and I believe Tom and I didn't get out of the car.
It was that bad.
It's not something that these neighbors should have out there.
And the debt service that to pay off this property has been eating a hole in the city's budget for 13 years now.
$50,000.
Okay. And if you could just briefly explain why this, in your view, this needs to be an emergency ordinance as opposed to just the normal ordinance process.
Because I feel that I'm under the gun to get the zoning hearing process started. I'm under the gun just if I will not begin construction on the sewer, because I'm not going to begin sewer construction until the city closes the deal, because that sewer construction includes the deal that the developer will put the assessment on. I have to look out for the city's funding that we will get our money back. So there's nothing that's going to go on with construction until all the zoning and everything's finished. But I would be totally putting the city behind the barrel if everything's approved and I just now begin sewer design. That is totally not a proper step for me. I need to move that process along. I would be hard pressed to have that sewer line up there by, I'm not going to say mid-2021. It's a very detailed process through the design and the bidding process and construction. So
And the city will be reimbursed for all of those costs.
the city will be reimbursed if it's 30 lots. Each home will pay $639 annual assessment for 20 years.
Right.
If it's 35 lots, they'll pay $548 a lot.
And the total acreage per, or unit per 25 to 20, almost 26 acres, it's almost 1 acre per unit.
It's 1.3.
1.3.
And that is
Okay.
by far better than we had in a long time. 1.35 acres per 1.35 units per acre is the number.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Mr. Blair?
Thank you for all this, Dave. It's very thorough, but I think for the benefit of the community that's here and going forward, can you sort of outline what the calendar looks like going forward, how long it's going to take? We've heard the community in some past meetings and have added, additional opportunities opportunities for public hearings. I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to air their opinion and their views on the subject, and I don't want to feel like anybody's getting surprised, so can you kind of lay out the calendar going forward?
Well, the first step would be that the CIC would meet and it basically execute the transfer of the property. I would then meet, I will basically be transferring the property from the city to the CIC. The CIC will be meeting and they'll be transferring the property, executing an agreement to transfer the property to a organization called CW Butterworth LLC. That deal won't go through until the zoning and everything is accomplished. They have things that they want zoning. We have things that we want. I want verification that every lot's going to get assessed, knowing that we'll be made whole with the sewer. So, best case scenario. October, the property transfer and the property agreement will be executed. The November Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they would meet with nothing more than this to determine whether or not it meets the requirements of an SPD. As soon as they do that, they hold their first public hearing to the public. What we used to do when we changed this was, I would sit there and say, yeah, I think this meets the requirement of an SPD, let's move forward with an SPD. We felt it was more important that the Planning and Zoning Commission, because there's certain things that have to be met to go through an SPD process. We do that for the SPD, that would be in November. I would anticipate they would then schedule a public hearing in about mid-November, prior to Thanksgiving, for the first public hearing by the P&Z. That's when the bargaining is. Where's your entryway gate gonna go? I've already sent them, by the way, your streets, your right-of-ways need to be 60, your cul-de-sacs need to be 100. I've already showed them all of the widths that they need to meet, and meanwhile, they're working with Western Water separate from us. So by mid-November, I think the P&Z is holding their first public hearing. By early December, I'd say they have held their second public hearing. They're getting ready to make a recommendation to council. Remember, they don't vote on it, they simply make a recommendation. Tim is the P&Z liaison. So I would think by the time we come to council and say, here's the recommendation, council then sets a public hearing at a future date, which will probably be maybe the next meeting. Council then can, there's all these findings. The P&Z, to be honest with you, would likely linger into early January, because by no means are they not going to sit one X and Y to come back to them. In reality, I think it will come back to council at sometime in probably late January, which means council wouldn't have their first public hearing until February. So now we're at half November, half December, half January, half February. By the time council asks for various requirements, and there's an additional public hearing needed, I think we'll be into February, March. I'm guessing I can actually do this a lot better with a calendar in front of me, but I would say best case scenario, council does 2 readings on the legislation creating an SPD, because one of the different things about an SPD is the P&Z has to go through the SPD process, but then after council reviews it, it goes back to P&Z because they have to do more public hearings, because it's also creating a map change on our map. So we have a map with all the different colors for zoning. A lot of them say SPD. So it goes back to P&Z, and P&Z then holds more public hearings to make formal map changes. All total, it goes P&Z, council, P&Z, and that typically takes about 6 months. That I believe would start if they were able to get their paperwork in, it would start sometime in early November.
And so we're not making a decision go, no go until sometime.
February, I think we come back to you, and then you're gonna send it back to P&Z. January, February, come back to you, I would think, and then you gotta send it back to P&Z.
Okay, so the public is gonna have plenty of time.
We added a whole nother hearing to
That's
that
it.
process.
Okay.
All you're doing tonight is telling me, give this property to CIC. CIC will be presented an agreement that has a lot of details. Details that they want, details that we want. No money's gonna change hands until everything has been sold. And yes, the input from the public The SPD process, I know might sound convoluted, but if you're a resident, an adjoining property owner who's going to receive a notification on this, you are much better served from a public input standpoint by going through an SPD rather than us saying, oh, it meets residential medium density, we can just do a straight zone change. It just is. I can always say it because I've gone through it once. So,
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah.
Mr. Ori?
I just wanted to address the two speakers tonight. Both of you talked about solving the traffic issue. And it gives us almost 2 years to solve it. But at the same time, the developers starting to look at it, and I have taken it upon myself to look at it, although I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've come up with some ideas already. So we're working on it. We know that is one of the crucial changes that need to be made in level. Just to let you know. Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. So, as this is sort of our first opportunity to, address the public with regards to this proposal, I just got a couple of questions and really, for one, going back to the original plan with the summit point, which you're referencing in the minutes here, where the Crane property is developed. The Crane parcel is developed, and the city parcel would be is sort of recreation.
passive.
Right. I'm wondering if, as that project fell through, probably due to the sewer and the infrastructure problems, as you've indicated in here. Currently, this project, how, inextricably linked are the sewer, the Crane, and the Christman parcels? Is it truly no Christman property, no project, no sewer, no project, or?
So if the city would not be participating and would only be selling access rights through our property, which obviously is going to be insignificant, and we were only going to sell access through our property, you would, I guess, potentially get between home-rama. I don't know how much we're willing to contribute to sewer for that project. We're getting no water from this limited income tax, and now a much reduced TIF. I don't know. I always was courteous and stayed in contact with the Crane. They would get frustrated, but I would tell them, I'm sorry, you're sending people our way with products that don't pass the sniff test. You're not here, I'm dealing with it, and I think at some point they got it. But obviously, anyone we've ever spoke to has also spoke with the Crane family because of the access. You really can't get into the Crane farm without coming through the city's property. And if that was all we were ever to be, yes, obviously the city wouldn't be getting $350,000. We would pay back the debt service and the money towards the city over a much longer period of time. I don't know about exactly what passive recreation means outside of walking trails. I don't know if those people would flock to that area to use that as a walking trail. You certainly wouldn't want to do something like soccer fields or something like that, or bring a tremendous amount of people. In an effort to make the most financial sense for the city, my opinion was that the city property had to be part of the project from a development standpoint, not just an access.
And so that would also mean that as a result, by combining them and by creating the assessment for the assistance with the sewer, what's happening is now the city is able to flip the investment and over the long term bring revenue back into the city, and therefore the taxpayers are no longer in debt due to the project, but actually reaping the benefits of a strategic development project.
Yeah, the developer originally I wanted 10 years on the sewer assessment. The developer asked for 20. This type of home, this type of development, high HOA fees. Obviously, we're going to have a lighting district in there. My opinion was that's fine, but it's airtight and will get reimbursed through that development. That's all we have up there, we're not the water, Western Water's the water.
Thank you. Another question I had was relative to, again, going back to the original intent, first park in Warren County, that kind of thing. I recently was visiting a city in a suburban area down in North Carolina and was taken with how it was laid out to have sort of an incorporated green space and walkway within the subdivision. Would that be something that could be sort of lobbied for through the SPD process, and would we be able to somehow create sort of a, whether it's sidewalks as like a bare minimum versus walking trails or something that would meander through a wooded area or something like that? Could that be at least discussed and interpreted through the development process in a community-led sort of way?
Yeah, the project includes sidewalks on one street, side of the street. It includes obviously 60-foot right-of-way. Of the proposals that we've received over the years, when I would tell them, is there any way you can figure in a park? I typically got the area under the power lines where they were going to put their detention basin, and that was our park. They are required to do detention, so let's put it under the power lines and put a walking trail around it, and that was our park. One of those offers included $50,000 for the city and still had a tremendous amount of units on both properties. I didn't see from a financial standpoint how this was going to work for the city. The Crane family would have sold it. And so the Crane family technically could have figured out a way to put a septic system up there, figured out a way to cut a gravel road up to it and put one big ranch out there. But from a financial standpoint, for the city, that would have failed. I would have failed. Not with this type of hole. That would have failed. To find something that does not have a negative impact and maybe conversely has a positive impact on the neighboring subdivisions, to me, I feel like, knowing what I've been dealing with 2014, this is the best product I think I can go with.
Okay. Lastly, I just want to echo Mr. Ori's sentiments about the traffic concerns. This has been a couple of instances now where I have heard folks, particularly from Warren County and subdivisions, complain about the difficulty in navigating their day-to-day, whether it's going to work through Loveland or trying to go shopping. And so I also will echo Mr. Ori in saying this is something I think all of us on council are committed to solving, and we recognize it as being a prime challenge for our residents, and it has lasting repercussions with people not wanting to put up with the hassle and complaining about not wanting to enjoy all the great opportunities we have to enjoy ourselves in downtown. The thing that makes downtown Loveland so fun shouldn't be a reason for people to avoid it. So I think we are going to continue to work on that. I also agree with the bike safety issues as well on 48. I think it can be really, really challenging with especially large groups. So anything we might be able to do to either go in contact with those cycling clubs or do anything with bike lanes or something to try to either reduce or encourage alternate routes rather than going right up that state route for their club rides. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, just to sort of sum up, I mean, I'm with one vote like everyone else, but just sort of where my head is in my short time on council, the number of projects, the number of potential developments that were brought to us that we, as Mr. Kennedy said, rejected outright because we are trying to look out for the individuals that live in Warren County and neighborhoods up there. I mean, many times we've met with developers and had to sit there and say, we don't like the product, we're not doing that. That's too high density, rentals, whatever. We turned away time after time after time. And if the right project didn't come along, we wouldn't be sitting here. But we have to, and I get it, I understand the traffic, I agree with, I do understand with Ms. Williams, what she said about traffic. We've heard that before. There are things that we are looking at that we can do, and this will give us some money to do some of those things, hopefully. But, you know, we're spending close to $50,000 a year on that debt service on that product, on that property up there. And as I said, we're willing to do that when we didn't have a good alternative. But we have to balance really the interest of the entire city, and that would include our general fund. And good heavens, we go from over $800,000 out to, by the time we pay ourselves back for all of that, about $1.5 million into the city fund to do what we need to do on projects. So it's as most decisions that we have to make, it's a balance. And I think this is the best deal, the best project we're ever going to get, short of doing nothing up there. And with the amount we owe, that just, to me, is not, I find hard, if everything works out with this and everything goes the way that we're hoping it goes, I just think this is going to be, in the long run, a good project for the city as a whole. And we'll do our best to address the issues that were raised. And we would love to find long-term solutions to our traffic problem, and it gives us some money to start to do that. So that's where my head is on it. But again, we're at the very beginning. We're not even making any decisions today other than to pass it off to CIC. But I do thank you all for being here and the ones that spoke and for listening. Anyone else? We have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Blair, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Westbrook? Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item